Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another edition of the Mavpuckcast. I am Jason.
And I am John.
And we talk hockey.
We try to talk hockey for sure.
Sometimes we spend too much time talking about other things.
Yeah, let's talk about the most recent series against Long Island University at Baxter Arena on October 29th and 30th. Our first time playing that new program. Sometimes we have to wait a while. You know, for example, Penn State started a program several years ago. We still haven't played them yet. So this was kind of a fun opportunity. I love those new programs, especially when the smaller schools, kind of like UNO, start a hockey program. And it was fun to get to see them in the building. What did you think? Starting off that series, we felt good coming in. We thought UNO was going to sweep this series. Certainly, the series ended up going very well for UNO, I thought. But early on in that Friday game, we were just kind of clinging to a one-goal lead. It really wasn't until late in the second that we kind of started to look like we were going to get things going.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about it during the game and stuff. Like, you always worry when it's a close game against teams like that, because when you're on the road, you're playing a team that should just wallop you, which is what ends up happening. Your goal, I think, as Long Island, was just to keep it close, right? Like, don't let it get out of hand, be in it at the end, and maybe you get a lucky bounce here or there, and something goes your way, right?
Right.
And they were that team. They played that game and they played it well, and they played physical. They kept everything tight. They made sure that in those first couple periods on Friday night that UNO wasn't able to kind of get their legs going. They weren't able to kind of drive their play. They put some pressure on Seville and kind of got up in his grill and got up into his face and caused some havoc in front of the net. And we had the 1-goal lead, but man, there was a lot of times I was feeling like we've got to find a way to get a few more, because this isn't going to go well for us if it's, late in the third and we're clinging to that 1-goal lead, because I think we're clinging pretty hard to it.
Yeah, that always makes you nervous, because you don't want to give them an opportunity to get a goal on some sort of fluky type of junk goal down close to the crease, which can happen in games like this against a team like that. So I was a little bit nervous after two, but really at the end of the second, when Long Island got a 5-minute major, I was starting to feel pretty good, because I'm like, that's an all-you-can-eat opportunity for UNO. They can score at will and score as many as they can without losing the man advantage. So I was feeling good going into the third, and certainly that 5-minute major against Long Island University really helped spur the guys at the beginning of the third period.
Yeah, it was one of those things that you knew if you didn't score on that, you didn't deserve to win. So I felt they had a little bit more urgency at that point, with their power play, because some of the power plays we had leading into that, they had chances. They were finally kind of putting it together, but it just seemed like they almost thought it was going to happen, and that they didn't really need to kind of put in the effort. I just felt like they were a little slow. And, I think that goes back to having that week off, right? Like, it's always difficult, when you've just practiced and you haven't been in game shape, you haven't been playing at game speed, things like that. I expected a period of kind of, off passing, being out of place a little bit and stuff. And, it really wasn't until the third that I really felt like we started playing like the UNO that we're used to seeing so far this season, right? Like, those first two periods, it was like a different team.
It's hard to get up for these types of opponents when you play in what is arguably the best conference in college hockey. And the first few series this year are against teams that are not, the grind of the NCHC, and it's hard for the guys to get up. Ultimately, they started firing all cylinders, like you mentioned, during the third period, and they got things going in a big way, and we got to see a lot of fun goals, and Bridget got to throw a lot of streamers after each goal, so that's always a good time, wondering if we're going to run out before the game is over.
I remember walking by her when we got there on Friday night, and I don't remember if she said she had 6 or 9 or something. I don't remember. You have to ask her how many she had. And I just jokingly looked at her and said, well, aren't you the pessimist? Like, that's all you think we're going to score? And of course, then, we're at the end of the second and it's still 1-0. And I'm like, I might be eating those words by the end of the night.
Exactly right. Yep.
But then just the flurry in the third. I mean, 5 goals, 3 in the power play in the third. The game ends up looking way out of hand compared to, if you watch the game. There's 2 periods where you're down by a goal. So I give credit to Long Island, hanging in there and fighting through that. And
they came in and played tough. And certainly, like you said, the score wasn't really indicative of how competitive that game was. So going into Saturday nights, I wasn't sure what was going to happen after that flurry of goals. I thought maybe UNO would put on the accelerator early and take it to them for 3 periods. But first shot of the game by Long
in the
Island,
back of the net. And that was Roden in net, I think. Right?
Yep. We were, you and I had talked on the last podcast that we thought maybe he would get a look during this game. He doesn't often get a lot of opportunity to play during games. Obviously, when you have a very talented goaltender like Isaiah Seville, who's had 2 shutouts this season, it's hard for the guys down on the depth chart. I think it'd be really hard to be a goaltender. If you're a forward or a defenseman, you may not play every game, but you do feel like you're going to get in there and get playing time. So the goaltenders don't. So we were excited to see Roden in net to get an opportunity. And 1 shot, 1 goal for Long Island University. That, sometimes happens in these games where they score really, really quick out of the gate. And I wasn't sure what to expect. I thought maybe, is this going to be like the previous night? But certainly it wasn't. And UNO definitely set the tone the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think it helps that within a few minutes, we were able to get that goal back, right?
Yep.
I think that if that lower team, that new team, especially a team that's not in your conference that you don't really know very well like that, like if they're able to hang on to that 1 goal lead for a long period of time, that's where you start to get really dangerous. So the fact that within a couple minutes or a few minutes or so, we were able to kind of even it up at 1. UNO was kind of able to get their legs under them, get back to playing the hockey that we saw them play in the third period of Friday night. And it was all UNO from there on. Like, the Long Island had chances, but in the second period particularly, they probably played, I think, their best hockey of the weekend, second period of Saturday night. But it was just, they just don't have the talent, right? Like UNO said, one of the things we've complained about in the past, right? Like is that they're a top 10 team that plays, a bottom 10 team, and they play like a bottom 10 team, and I think this was kind of a weekend where I've seen them say, if we want to be a top 10 team, we always have to play like a top 10 team. And that's what we saw this weekend. And that's what we need to continue to see next weekend too. They need to go in there and say, we're a top 10 team and we're going to play like a top 10 team. That way we stay a top 10 team.
Yeah, they need to progress and they need to continue to do the little things right. When you look at the schedule, before the first of the year, obviously we've got some big series coming up against teams like St. Cloud and Western Michigan, which are going to be really good sort of kind of benchmark series to see where we're at. But It really isn't until January 1st and we're going to start to see them get into the grind and playing the best teams really in the country week in, week out. So it's going to be interesting, and they're going to have to keep themselves motivated. But the guys seem to be putting it together. We're getting a lot of good contributions from some of the younger players, like your Davis Penningtons, for example, is a player that Bridget's really been impressed with early on this season. It was a great performance. A 7-1 win. Roden didn't get a shutout, but man, if it hadn't been for that first shot of the game, he might have gotten a shutout too. And that would have been great to get two shutouts on the weekend. But we got to talk our player of the series, our player of the week. I told you as we were headed out to the parking lot after Saturday's game that I was going to take the easy one this week.
Yeah, you got the easy one.
So I hope that Jason has come up with something interesting, because he usually likes to do that. But I'm going to take the obvious pick again, the player that I picked last week, which is Taylor Ward, who we just found out right before this podcast is the NCHC Player of the Month. He was a player of the week as well for his performance this last weekend. Great performance, had a hat trick on Saturday nights. But honestly, one of the most impressive plays was the first goal on Friday nights that UNO scored. It was an assist that he dished to Brandon McManus. And it was a circle to circle across the slot. It was just this laser of a pass. And it's that kind of awareness and that kind of quick reaction is what makes him such a great player. And it's what's made him a great player since the time he started playing at UNO. During his first couple of seasons, UNO was not that solid of a team, but he's always been good. And that's what's so impressive about him. 5 goals, 3 assists on the weekend. He has 10 goals, 6 assists overall this season. Just a really impressive player. And I'm happy to pick him every week the rest of the season because he's just been stuck.
What impresses me is like we've talked about it the last couple of years, when Pope left UNO, right? Like Pope was that guy that was that reliable power play scorer. Like it seemed like if we got a power play goal, it was David Pope, right?
Yep.
And since he's left, I've never really felt like we had, a consistent guy that could find open space and finish on the power play. One week it was this guy, another week it might be that guy, and then that guy turtles and goes nowhere. And so it's really nice to see him kind of come out and I don't want to say specialize because he's so much more than just a power play threat, but be that guy that we can kind of rely to and go to. And teams are going to have to key in and focus on him, and that's going to, even when he doesn't show up on the score sheet, that's going to present opportunities for other players to find open space. And so that's a breath of fresh air, I think, for this team, and it really helps UNO. And he right now, as far as I know, he still leads. He was leading going into the weekend. I can't believe that he gets 4 on the power play and he doesn't keep his lead for power play goals and power play points. So hopefully it's a sign of more to come this year, right?
I hope so.
So I have the actual work to do on this podcast because actually have to come up with someone else. Yeah, I mean, and there's actually a lot of players to kind of look at because a lot of guys had a good weekend. I actually kind of flip-flopped between 2 guys named Brandon. McManus, I think, had a really reliable game. He was good on the power play, which, he led to a couple, had assists on a couple of Taylor Ward's goals. And you mentioned the goal of his own and stuff. So like really solid effort from him. But I think the guy that stood out to me more than him was Scanlon, Brandon Scanlon. We've needed defense in the past and haven't been able to get it. And he's kind of our go-to, defenseman. And to see him come up with, I think he had 4 assists and a goal on the weekend. So, just be able to produce on offense, but also be the solid force on defense makes a huge difference for this team.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's one of my favorite players, one of the best defensemen we have. And certainly with guys like Johnny Tyconic out, who we learned this last week since our last podcast was injured, it's great to see him stepping up. And he's the type of guy who can contribute defensively, but he's also the type of guy who can be a real force offensively and on the power play. And so it's great to see Brandon Scanlon playing so well this season, just again, progressing from where he was before. And I think that's a great pick, Jason. So I probably would have picked him if I hadn't picked Taylor Ward. So there we were.
I figured because you do usually pick him. So
I pick him. Yes. It's like that one season where I picked Joey Abate like every other series. So yeah, I do pick Brandon Scanlon a lot. So those are a couple great picks. So it was a great series. Good to get that under the belt for UNO. They're off to a great start, 7-1 this season so far. So we'll see where things progress from here, and we'll talk a little bit later about their next series. But we've got some of our shootout segments, which are quick topic segments. Jason and I aren't exactly quick, but we're going to try. We're getting better at that. We're not as
we're
good
trying.
got a couple of topics to discuss, and these should be pretty short. The first one is your wife noticed at the game Baxter Arena this weekend that Chick-fil-A is selling their wares. I'm assuming chicken sandwiches. I don't think I've gotten Chick-fil-A at Baxter Arena yet. I'll have to remedy that, but they're selling it at the main concession stands now.
The regular Chick-fil-A sandwich and the spicy Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Okay, so do they just sell the sandwiches there, or are there nuggets sold?
All I saw was sandwiches. I didn't see chicken nuggets anywhere.
Okay, so I may have to sample that to see what all they have. The sandwiches are great. That's usually what I get when I go to a Chick-fil-A restaurant. So if you're interested, fans, you can get them at the main concession stand. Certainly the main.
But no waffle fries. So,
no waffle fries? That's
no waffle fries, man. Like, it's not Chick-fil-A. Waffle fries. Come on.
Okay. All right. So that note, so you can get your Chick-fil-A fix at the main concession stand. Our second little tidbit that we have here, Jason, is that the 25th anniversary videos that they've been showing during the games this season at Baxter Arena to celebrate the 25th season of UNO hockey are available on the Omaha Mavericks YouTube channel, as well as the official Omaha Hockey Twitter account, which is at Omaha HKY. And the videos focus on different aspects of the team. Coach Kemp talked about the formation of the program in one of them. The one this last weekend that we got to see focused on some of the Mavericks that are in the Omaha Hockey Hall of Fame. Scott Parse, Brian Marshall, and David Brisson, all three were on hand, and they appeared at center ice during, I believe, the Saturday game. Maybe it was the Friday game. It's been a few days now, but they appeared during the game. They were in the building, which was pretty cool to have them there and honored. And fun fact, I did design way back when for Gary Anderson, who used to be the sports information director at UNO. Bridget and I got to know him when we were on the Blue Line Club board of directors back in the late 90s and early 2000s. I designed the Omaha Hockey Hall of Fame logo for him. He had a sketch of what he wanted. The O was based on an O that appeared on the old Exarban Knights jerseys from back in the 1960s. And so I made that logo, and I think they're still using the logo. I found online that they were still using it in 2016. So I thought I'd throw that bit of trivia there. But it was great to have those guys back in the building. So you can view all those videos. UNO slowly shares them on their Twitter account. So it's definitely worth a follow if you're not following them already. And you can also check those out on YouTube accounts. So you might want to check those out, Jason. So yeah,
I won't be as nostalgic as you were about it, but I will definitely check them out.
Yeah, Jason wasn't around during those early years, so that's okay. We're not focusing on any former Denver University hockey players, Jason. So
I'd probably be better there. So enemy territory during those years.
That's right. So we're rolling through these topics. We have one more topic, and we're going to try this month on the podcast to each of us present one idea that we have to fill Baxter Arena, because the crowds they've been okay for October, but this team is a top 10 team. They're currently ranked number 9. We'd like to see more fans come out and support them. So I thought we could each present one idea. Otherwise, if we didn't limit ourselves to one idea, Jason and I could talk about this for the next 45 minutes, and we know you don't want to do that. So Jason, why don't you start with your idea, this week's idea anyway, for what they might be able to do to help get more people out to the games and support this terrific team?
I'm going to steal my idea from pretty much every NHL team. 4 drinks, 4 hot dogs, 4 French fries, and, bring the whole family, come on down, check it out. Hopefully you get them involved, especially those younger kids. Like, they have fun and stuff. They want to bring the parents the next year. They get to the point where they're in college, they're earning their own money. They're trying to decide what they're going to do. Maybe they're the future season ticket holders, right? So I would like to see them do, regularly something like that, not just a single, one-off, we'll do it this week and never do it again type of thing.
Right. So do it on a week-by-week basis. I think that sounds great. And that kind of supports my idea, which is that I think Bridget and I are big database people. We spend a lot of time building lists in our business. One of the things that I would like to see UNO work on really on the athletic department side is to reach out more to UNO alumni. There are so many of them in our community, and the Alumni Association themselves have done a wonderful job of doing some pre-game events over the years. For example, Bridget and I went to one a couple weeks ago before the homecoming game that was across the street from Baxter Arena at the baseball complex. And it was a wonderful pre-game event, and it was great to see people get out. And they were offered ticket deals for the hockey game that night. But I would love to see the athletic department themselves do more and help fund some more of these activities, because I think that that's the thing. When I go around and watch other college hockey programs around the country, so many of those fans and so many of the fans that we interact with on social media are alumni of those institutions. And I think that UNO has not done a lot from the athletic department side to really target those people. I know that there are some discounts for tickets that you can get. You can get some money off season tickets and whatnot. But I think that marketing to that audience is something that they should spend a little bit more time on, because that audience really has a vested interest. So many people in this city, whether they got a degree or not, they've taken classes at UNO, done continuing education. It's just affected so many people, and it's definitely the accessible four-year university option for so many people in this community. And I would love to see them spend more time marketing to the alums.
I'm a little surprised that they don't do more of that too.
I know. So your ticket pack would be a great thing to market to those people, Jason.
Because a lot of them probably have families right now, right? Yeah.
I would imagine they definitely make up the middle class of Omaha, and Omaha is definitely a family town. So yeah, I wish they did a little bit more of that. But in the meantime, those were a couple of great ideas. Thank you for your contribution, Jason. We'll have more coming up. I'm sure Jason and I will think of other interesting things, but that was those were our first suggestions for helping to fill Baxter Arena. And speaking of filling Baxter Arena, we've got a series coming up this weekend against the Miami RedHawks, our first conference series of the season. It's kind of funny, in the teaser, I was just watching the WOWT Channel 6 newscast, and before commercial break, they referred to this series as a top 10 matchup. And I'm thinking, yeah, Miami is definitely not a top 10 team.
Not a top 10 team.
We're ranked in the top 10, and unless we're scrimmaging ourselves, I don't think that qualifies as a top 10 matchup. The other interesting thing from the segment was it's Tuesdays normally when they hold their team news conferences, and they had Mike Gabinet on camera saying, well, we weren't able to practice today because it's an election day or whatever. And I'm thinking, well, I know some parts of the country are having elections, but here in Nebraska, we definitely aren't. So I don't know if that was a league-wide thing that they didn't allow that because today was a voting day. So it was just a weird segment all around. So for those of you who think that Jason and I, not being, official media people are unpolished, I got to tell you, I think we do a pretty good job. So we didn't have any, that was really just an odd thing entirely. So, but Jason and I will talk about this series, top 10 matchup or not. The number 9 Mavericks are going to be heading into the series, our first conference series of the season against Miami. What do you think?
I think Miami's a hard team to kind of predict. In the past, we just talked about this in the beginning segment, right? Like in the past, has been the kind of team that almost plays down to teams, right? So they need to go into it knowing that they can't do that they have to still play. If they want to stay a top 10 team, they have to play like a top 10 team. But the fact is that the worst team in the NCHC is better than half the league every year, it seems like. So this is not, even though this is a team that we predicted and a lot of people predicted to be, competing for the bottom 2 slots in the conference, this is not a rollover game in any way. I like that it's at home. I think that helps us. It certainly would help us if people came out to the game and, filled Baxter Arena and cheered loud for them. But regardless, I think that playing at home, being in your own bed, familiar with the rink, familiar with where everything is, that energy, I think really helps UNO.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing, and like you said, Miami is a hard team to read. I mean, there are just certain teams that, sometimes it's always hard to say why, but sometimes you just kind of have your struggles against them. Last season, UNO was an NCAA tournament team. Miami had its struggles last season, but you look at how they played UNO in those pod games to start the season during the entire kind of COVID reoriented season. And we beat them in one of the two games we played, but it was a 2-1 win in overtime. And then we lost the next game 1-0. So Miami always plays us tough. I know over the past few years, we've had games where it looked like we should sweep a series against them, and they came out and beat us. So they are a tough team to read. They're trying to get back on track under Chris Bergeron. They haven't been the same as they were about a decade ago. And just for the sake of college hockey and the sake of the conference being competitive, I hope they get back to that point. Like you said, I think playing at home will do well. I think having some confidence going into this series, having had some success against these teams that we played here at Baxter Arena the first 8 games, I think we're going to do well. I don't know. I'm torn as to whether to pick a sweep or not. I want to be optimistic and pick a sweep. And you know what? I am going to pick a sweep. I think I am going to pick a sweep, Jason. And I will tell you, there are a couple players that I hope people will watch that are on Miami who were originally UNO recruits. Jack Clement and Derek Dashke are both defensemen and both two of their best players. They don't have a lot of superstars on that team for sure, but those are two guys to watch just because of their kind of previous connection with UNO.
I think for me, the key to UNO's victory is going to be special teams. Miami's had some success on the power play, but they've played teams that in the last few years haven't had the best penalty kills. So on paper, the question is Miami, good on the power play or not, right?
Right.
And so we need to make sure that they go over, right? Like we want them to show up and for people to go, yeah, they were overrated coming in. So the penalty kills got to be on point. Because we're going to have to kill some off. Hopefully not too many. If we can stay out of the box and not give them a whole lot of opportunities, that's always going to help us no matter what team we're playing, and especially with Miami. A lot like Long Island, they're going to come in, try to keep the game close, maybe capitalize on a couple of UNO mistakes with undisciplined penalties or errors in judgment on defense or something like that. So we need to try to limit those things. And then I think for us, offensively, the key is the power play. They don't have a good penalty kill. And so for us, the key is when we get a chance on the power play, when we get to go a man up, to make sure that we, knock that out. I think if we can click, anywhere around a 20 to 25%, it's a good sign for us for a sweep. And with Taylor Ward being hot and Weiss moving the puck the way he's been moving it the last couple of games, Scanlon on the point, driving everything and dictating everything. I think that right there can get us over the hump for a sweep. We get some guys back that'll make a big difference as well. So I'm with you. I'm going to say a sweep as well.
Yeah, and they can't. We can't take Miami lightly. I mean, they've only won one game this season, but they played everyone tough. They lost 2 games in overtime, and you just don't know. I mean, when you're playing games at Ferris State, at Michigan State, and a home and home against Bowling Green, that's really good competition coming in, and they're going to be chomping at the bit to try to get some conference points here and get off to a good start this season. So, like you said, the guys you mentioned, I completely agree with. A big weekend in net from Isaiah Seville would be welcome, and I'm sure he'll be up to the challenge. So it should be an exciting series. So and I know you guys are off to a youth hockey tournament this weekend, Jason. So you guys won't be there. Bridget and I will be there. I know your youngest daughter will be there with her in-laws, so she can prepare to do the podcast with Bridget next week. It'll be we will be
we'll be traveling to South Dakota doing the whole kids hockey thing. So
How,
we'll
how
be
many,
watching though, for sure.
yeah, absolutely. You guys will be watching. And how many games do they play during that weekend tournament that you're going up for?
I think we get 4 games this weekend. So
Okay, so that'll be an exciting time. I wish Lexi's team well. I hope they do well this weekend. And be sure to follow Mavpuck on Facebook and Twitter. We've got a lot of great updates on there. And you can find links to those social media channels at mavpuck.com, as well as back episodes of this podcast, both the audio podcast and the video podcast. Jason and I are having to fix ourselves up and do our hair and make sure that we look good for all of you. We're lit well. Exactly. So until next time, guys, go Mavs.
Go Mavs.